Good day, everyone. Welcome to another edition of CANTO Conversations. I'm your host, Charles Douglas, Vice Chairman of CANTO and Senior Manager of Government and Regulatory Affairs at Liberty Caribbean, trading as Flow. Thank you for joining us today for what promises to be an informative and forward-thinking session. Our topic is boosting carrier capital, the financial upsides of device buyback programs. As you know, in today's telecom landscape, carriers are discovering that unused devices aren't just leftover inventory, but they are powerful tools for unlocking capital, engaging customers, and cutting operational costs. From wholesale buyback to trading programs and certified pre-owned solutions, there's a lot to explore today. By way of a reminder, before we dive in, we'll open the floor for questions at the end of the session. So feel free to share your thoughts in the chat box throughout the discussion, and then I will raise them at the end for the discussion. It's now my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker, Adam Taylor, Business Development Associate at Newaya. Adam leads business development at Newaya, a company that helps carriers maximize the value of their device trading and buyback programs. With more than a decade of experience in retail management and organizational leadership, Adam brings a strong focus on operational efficiency and customer experience. Since joining Newaya a year ago, he has already doubled the number of carriers using Newaya trade platform, working closely with partners to make trading and certified pre-owned solutions strategies key drivers of revenue and retention. When he's not working with telecom providers, Adam is an avid outdoorsman, running, cycling, and skiing through the mountains year-round. Adam, welcome to CANTO Conversations, and we are thrilled to have you with us. We await your presentation, your opening comments and presentation.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me today, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good day. Really looking forward to diving into some material. Thanks for that generous introduction. And without further ado, I say we dive in. Let me share my screen. Okay. So like Charles queued up, today I want to talk about boosting carrier capital and discussing the financial upsides of device buyback programs. Again, my name is Adam Taylor. I've been with Newaya for about a year. Some of you may recognize me from Curacao back in January. I embarrassingly had to get on stage at the opening ceremony to dance. So hopefully I won't make as much a fool of myself as I did a couple months ago. So let's go ahead and dive in. Today, I want to give you a brief introduction to who Newaya is. I want to discuss wholesale device liquidation. I want to discuss device trade-in. And then we'll talk about CPO or certified pre-owned device sales. So everything we're going to talk about today is, again, leveraging used devices to reduce promotional expenditure, reduce the cost of customer acquisition. We can spin an environmental component to it as well to reduce the amount of devices that are ending up in landfills, and ultimately driving success for your business. So Newaya has been doing device recycling and device trade-in since 2012. We're located in Fort Collins, Colorado, so we're kind of in the middle of the United States, near the mountains there. Charles mentioned I like to play in the mountains, hence why I'm here. And just really briefly, I wanted to emphasize that we take a really consultative approach in seeking to simplify the complexities of use device management. So I think how we really differ from our competition is we're a very small team. We're very entrepreneurial. There's just 7 of us. We've developed everything that I'll talk about today, everything from the software side of things to the reverse logistics and the operational piece. And we like to try things. So we invite our partners to dream up solutions together and in an effort to hopefully simplify business complexities. So I mentioned briefly that we do wholesale device buyback. I'll talk about that first on our next slide. Here are just some of the big names, folks that use us for wholesale device buyback, which just means we buy large chunks of excess or damaged devices from these suppliers here. Newaya Trade, that is our device trade-in program, and that's what I've predominantly spoken with most of you guys about. And that is to allow for customers to trade in their device at retail, receive a little bit of value towards their new device, and ultimately reduce the cost of that new device. These are the 15 carriers in the United States that use our program. It's maybe worth pointing out GTA, Docomo Pacific, and IT&E. Those are carriers on the islands of Guam in the Pacific Islands. And so through this partnership with those in the Pacific Islands, we have a DHL integration into our software to help mitigate any issues that may come up with international logistics. So I want to bring that up because that would be something we work through together. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. So I want to start by talking about wholesale device buyback. Again, wholesale device buyback is just the large purchasing of damaged, end-of-life, overstock devices that are taking up space and just depreciating assets in your warehouses. And so most of what I speak to in this segment is just the reduction of depreciation. And so we all are aware that consumer electronics, specifically mobile devices, depreciate very rapidly. And what you'll see in this big chart here on the right is our experience of how prices depreciate over time. So you can see Apple devices are a little more resilient to depreciation, where Samsung and Android devices are going to be faced with a little bit higher rate of depreciation. So you can see at 6 months, a typical Apple device is going to retain 70% of its original MSRP, whereas a similar Samsung device is going to retain maybe 55%. So you're going to see a little bit higher depreciation rate with your Samsung devices versus an Apple device. So what devices qualify, or what are you thinking about when talking to wholesale device buyback? And that, again, is going to be those end-of-life devices, the overstock devices, damaged devices, maybe a fleet of demo devices from all your retail locations. You come to me and say, hey, Adam, I've got 250 devices. What can we get for them? And we can start the conversation. So I mentioned we are a small business, but we do have the buying power to be able to make $150,000, $200,000 device acquisitions. And so in our next example, I'll show you one that we did recently. So carrier partner A, this was an example from just a couple months ago. Carrier partner A liquidated 250 devices from us, or with us. 80% were Apple, 20% were Android, which realistically is a little more common in the States. Most of our regional carriers are Apple heavy carriers. The majority of these devices were new in box and still sealed. So the use case for this was this carrier just ordered way too many of their devices. They're now a couple generations old. They can't liquidate them through their typical sales channels. So they come to us and we can help reduce the amount of depreciation that they're seeing. So the average device age was over 3 years old. So again, these are getting to be pretty old devices. Overall, they were able to recuperate 36% of the original MSRP for these devices. The total purchase price on this, I don't have it on here, was like $160,000 US. And I would touch on this point, maybe draw everyone's attention at this point, is they got $160K for all of these, but had they investigated selling off these devices 6 months earlier, I think we could have got them another $10,000, which isn't an insignificant amount. by catching devices a little bit earlier. So with this, the thing I want to emphasize is, as I'm sure most folks are, is analyze your on-hand inventory regularly, and maybe do one or two cleaning house kind of wholesale device liquidation buybacks each year. We're kind of through the spring season now, and so a lot of folks were selling off stuff that was replaced by the Samsung device launch or Apple device launch. But continue to keep an eye on these things, and allow us to be a means of doing large scale liquidations as devices age out of your inventory. Cool. So I'm going to take just a 5-second break, catch my breath. But be thinking of any questions that you have for each of these topics. Go ahead, throw them in the chat now. Like Charles said, we'll address everything towards the end. But be thinking of questions you can ask regarding wholesale device buyback. So give you just 5 seconds. If you guys have anything, throw it in the chat. Come off mute. Happy to engage now too. Okay, cool. I didn't see anything come in, but that's okay. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about with everybody is device trade-in. So this in the United States, as far as carrier promotions, is kind of the silver bullet. It's the catch-all. Everybody's doing it. A lot of my regional carriers in the States are, doing their best to emulate what the tier ones are doing. And I think it, especially in the United States, is a necessary evil. We're not an evil necessarily, but something that we've got to start doing with all of our regional carriers. So the whole point of device trade-in is to minimize the cost of handset promotions, to minimize the cost of new customer acquisitions, and then increasing your device turnover. So increasing device turnover is going to get folks in the door more often, which can lead to upselling, and just having a tighter relationship with your customer, a bit stickier relationship. So in the States, with our regional carriers here, the real power in a device trade-in program is then tying it to your device promotion. So with my carriers that just have device trade-in, I see, or versus a carrier with device trade-in tied to a promotion, I see a 20-time higher take rate of that trade-in program when it's then tied to a promotion. And I think the reason for that is that utilizing or combining device trade-in and device promotion allows you as a carrier to offer a higher promotional value, and it overcomes the objective that a customer is going to face if you just give them a trade-in value. So main objective we see with people pushing back against trade-in is, hey, I can get more for this on the secondary market if I were to sell it through other sources, which is probably true. But if you're going to give them an extra $150 off that device by trading in a device, now their $100 device that they could sell on the open market turns into $250 worth of value. So from a customer perspective, that's huge. From a business perspective with device trade-in, what it allows you to do is say, hey, we're going to offer up to $600 off of a new device. If you buy 6 months of prepaid service, if you sign on to a certain postpaid account or postpaid service, and that $600 in value, or that up to $600 in value, requires a $150 trade-in. And at most, then that means it's going to cost you as a carrier $450. By offsetting $150 of that $600 by customer trade-in, you as a carrier can offer more and pay a little bit less. So that's the power of it, and we can play that out in a bunch of different ways, but that's really the logic behind how folks are leveraging device trade-in for their promotions. So here's an example of one of my carriers in rural Utah. They have a promotion that says get up to $800 off select devices when you trade in your device. They have that title is that $800 off. But at most, it's going to cost the carrier $400. So they say 800 up to $800 off. That's a $400 subsidy plus a $400 trade-in, which means it's not going to cost Strata Networks any more than $400 for any customer. So again, leveraging device trade-in just allows you to offer way more promotional value, but you don't always have to pay out that highest value. So a couple things to note about this program specifically is that they require that trade-in to be a down payment on a new device. So they require that the money stay in-house. They're not paying customer any amount of money to go spend it elsewhere. So you're going to get that customer to continue to spend money with you. And then they require a minimum trade-in amount. And what that does is that just ensures that they're getting a decent amount of value to help offset whatever their subsidy is. And it can help kind of meter how many people they're paying this $400 subsidy to. So for someone who may not be a high dollar customer, someone who doesn't buy the flagship devices, maybe isn't on the higher service plans from a postpaid standpoint, maybe they say, hey, it doesn't make business sense for us to just hand them a $400 credit because we're never going to recoup that revenue from them. And then a couple results specifically about this trade-in promotion. So my partner here, they ran this trade-in for less than a week, and they saw a 7% bump in October sales year over year for 1 week of promotion. They also saw a 300% increase in weekly sales versus the previous 4 weeks. Again, huge numbers, huge increases. They do have to pay for it. They're paying that subsidy, but they're getting tremendous customer interest through this program. And then lastly, the thing I like the most is that every single one of their retail associates, RSAs, in every one of their retail stores participated. So not only are customers excited, but internal folks are able to get excited and to leverage this as a sales tool to push more devices within their customer base. So this is just one example that I have, and I have a ton, and I have compiled them in a promotional guide, a trade-in promotion guide specifically, which you can use this QR code if you want to pull it up on your phone. I believe we'll send this out so you can click this link. If not, feel free to hit me up, and I will make sure everybody has a copy of this trade-in promotion guide where I break down the pieces of a trade-in promotion. I show a bunch of examples of how folks are actually using this. I talk about specifics with terms and conditions, and hopefully demystify some of what trade-in promotions can be for folks. Cool. Okay. I want to take just a couple seconds. Again, feel free to drop some questions in the chat. I see I've got one here. And then we'll move on to kind of the last piece of this puzzle.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Adam. It was eye-opening. I'm sure it's new to a number of us, as well as others. So we're encouraging you, drop in the chat and let's continue with the presentation. Drop your questions in our comments. If you don't have a question and love to make a comment, please drop it in. Go ahead, Adam.
Thanks, Charles. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about with everybody is CPO device sales. So CPO being certified pre-owned. And this realistically is a little bit newer program that we've been doing, but we've had really good success with our carriers here in the States that are utilizing it. So folks are using CPO devices, certified pre-owned devices, for cost-conscious customers. I'll show an example of this next point, but I've got a carrier using them for in-house warranty replacements. And then we've got folks locally as well using them as promotional devices. So, those cost-conscious customers think, hey, we're doing a network transition, we're phasing people out, and now we've got 15,000 people with handsets that aren't going to work on our network. But they don't care about a flagship device. They need something that's a little bit more lower cost to kind of stay in the game. That can be a good use case for leveraging a heaping helping of CPO devices. With the in-house warranty replacements, if anybody on the call is managing in-house warranty, so maybe they provide an additional assurance program. The example I'll show after this, that is the case. So they have in-house, hey, pay $10 a month for additional insurance on your device outside of that manufacturer warranty, and we, carrier, will replace your device if something happens. And then again, promotional devices. I've got one partner here through our CPO program that's using them on a prepaid basis as a free when you sign up, when you purchase X number of months on our prepaid service. So, or X amount of data on our prepaid service. So let me dive into the last example I've got for everybody. And that is that in-house warranty replacements example. So I've got a carrier here locally that, like I said, offers a supplementary insurance program through their carrier. Again, it's a $10 or $15 a month service for their postpaid customers that say, hey, outside of that manufacturer warranty, if you drop it, you crack the screen, if you lose it, if you run it over with a tractor, which they were showing me some of their warranty replacements, and that is happening, we'll replace your device with a like model at no additional cost because you're paying us this monthly service fee. But what they were doing, folks would be on it. Maybe they got an iPhone 12. They keep it for 2-3 years, as we're seeing folks are doing. And now they break it, and my carrier can't do anything except replace it with an iPhone 15 because we can't purchase anything older than an iPhone 15. So it was costing our carrier a ton of additional money. They were all of our carriers in the States, they don't get any margin on Apple products. And so they were replacing this device, this iPhone 12 with an iPhone 15. It was costing them $800. And the customers were able to kind of manipulate the system and game it so that they could get, free upgrades on the carrier's dime. And so when we came in, we said, well, we'll sell you, certified pre-owned iPhone 12s or iPhone 13s. And that way you can replace like model with like model. You can replace a damaged used device with an undamaged yet used device. And they're saving a ton of money with it. So you can see the chart on the right here shows CPO replacement pricing. And this was from a few months ago. So this might have changed even a little bit versus, the iPhone series equivalent replacement. And you're seeing you're replacing an iPhone 13 with a brand new iPhone 15. I mean, that's what, a $450 increase in cost. So by leveraging a little bit lower price devices, our carrier is saving a ton of money on their in-house warranty replacements. Overall, they're spending about half the amount of money utilizing our CPO program versus going and replacing with a brand new in-box device. Cool. All right, that rounds it out. It's short and sweet. I appreciate everybody's time. Again, I've got tons of resources if anybody needs anything. Here's my contact info. If you want to book a meeting with me, you can do so through this QR code. Send me an email directly. And then I just wanted to emphasize that I'm going to be in the Bahamas at the next CANTO event in July. So if anything, maybe we can just find some time to meet in the Bahamas and meet face to face, which is always my preferred way of doing business. So thank you again for your time. Thank you, CANTO, for allowing me a platform to speak, and Charles for being the best moderator there is.
No, awesome, Adam. You've given us a lot to think about, and excited to have the conversations. Now we have, I would say, 30 minutes or so at most to talk about your presentation, aspects of it, share what's happening in the Caribbean, and add value to the CANTO community. As you know, this program is being recorded, and many will see it afterwards. So it's great value. So again, to all who are on, I'm inviting you now to put your questions in the chat and also to add any comments you would like. All right, now let me try to invite some audience participation, if I will, right? I'll address these questions, which are very pointed, but I'm going to try and see if we can collectively help describe what we think the landscape is. So in your presentation, Adam, you kind of highlighted in the US, it was more like an 80% Apple, 20% Android, and then you showed your chart, which indicated, the value in Apple kind of is retained. So my question to our audience is, what do they think the Caribbean demographic is? Is that flipped, right? Where it's a higher percentage of Android and even a lower than 20% level of iPhones. And would that make a difference to your business model? You can stew on that, right? Because it goes to the value that can be added back. All right, so that's one. That's one thing that went through my mind. And again, now you also seem to suggest that the viability of the program in the US was kind of supported by that new in the box type inventory, where a lot of inventories, ordered, or people bet on the sales. It isn't realized, but then they have that. And then the question with the teams on the call, which represent different companies, what is their sense of that possibility? So let me go to the chat now. I have teased you up with those, Adam. Still on them. On the team, you can comment on that to see how this matches our environment. So first question, do you work with any companies in the Caribbean?
We do not work with any companies in the Caribbean right now, which might sound salesy, but I think it's a really good opportunity for folks to get a competitive edge against their competition, because no one's doing it right now. No one's doing trade-in, and I think there's a market, and it can be a service that you
fantastic,
offer your
and we
customers.
welcome you. That's why you're here. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why you're here. So welcome with open arms. So it's something to stimulate, something to get done. That having been said, do you anticipate the business model primarily redistributing pre-owned assets in the Caribbean, or you think we from the Caribbean could export to the States, where you have those areas in rural Utah or other rural areas of the United States where maybe getting these devices through our entities here, maybe you have a market for them in the US, or do you see them trying to market them in the Caribbean itself? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that will depend on the volume of devices that we're seeing through our trade-in program in the Caribbean. Right now, our sales channel is worldwide. So we collect phones from US-based carriers, but we distribute them worldwide to buyers all across the globe. And so we do have a worldwide network of folks who want used handsets. So I think it would depend. If we see huge volume in the Caribbean, maybe we open an office in the Caribbean and we have some operations technicians that are headquartered there. I know we've talked about the opportunities in Miami to have folks kind of in the free trade area to import those used devices from our Caribbean carriers and then redistribute them out to the world, to our buyers. So I think it depends on kind of volume. And I think the thing that, and Charles, we've talked about this a little bit, that makes us different is that we're willing to go into the unknown and figure it out as the issue arises. So we've talked loosely about some ideas as to address some of these problems, but realistically, they haven't risen yet. So I think we'll kind of hammer down specifics.
Very good answer. No, very good answer. Very good answer, and it makes a lot of sense. Now, given the sort of demographic of the Caribbean and this disposable income, you might find a certain segment of the base disposed to holding on longer to their devices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the longer they hold, based on your presentation, is the less value, correct? The value declines.
Correct.
If it's Android, it falls off more sharply than if it's an Apple.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about it because your part of your pitch is to stimulate them to change, through other programs. We'll get to that. So the question to you is in the chat, and it relates.
Hi, are you guys hearing Charles? Adam?
I'm not
Hearing
hearing
you, Adam.
Charles.
We're not hearing Charles.
No, I'm not
I
hearing
think he had some connectivity problem. But let's carry on, Adam. I'm Teresa. And for the benefit of the audience, we could just continue until Charles comes back in. So from our perspective, we wanted to find out, how does the take back work? How does the system work? So especially, let's say, hypothetically speaking, a company like CANTO, who has multiple members who are telcos. So CANTO is not in the telecommunication business, so to speak. But if we say want our members to get involved in this system, how do we go about it?
Yeah. Thanks, Teresa, for stepping in. Well, I think you guys continuing to help me get the word out has been a huge help. But I think there's a way that we could probably format some sort of conglomerate. I mean, we can talk about this offline, but realistically, we can pay CANTO almost a finder's fee or a chunk of commission off of Caribbean carriers that sign up in our program. But maybe taking a step back, our program is simply just a web-based portal that retail associates log into in their retail stores. It allows them to search for a device, enter condition information about the condition of the device. Our system spits out a live price for the device. So you can say, hey, you've got this phone in this condition. We can offer you $100 for it. And that qualifies you for an extra $150 off based on our promotion. And then
I'm here with Charles.
He's back.
Continue with your response.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's pre-screened, right? That's what you're saying. There's some pre-screening, but continue with.
Yeah. So the retail associate is the one that we entrust with grading the condition of the device because they've got it in front of them. They complete the trade-in, and then within our portal as well, they can initiate a shipment for that, a box of all the trade-ins they've done that month to come back into the States. Does that answer the question, Teresa?
Yes, it does. And I have one other question before I
please.
hand over to Charles. Don't ever give me the mic, Charles.
No, please go ahead. I'm looking for questions in the chat.
Yeah, so explain to us. So let's say a telco, a local telco is interested, right? Is it that they would have to store all the take back phones and stuff like that, and they send it to you? So there is a little cost attached to the telco. What other costs are there for a telco who is interested in something like this? And I'm going to be gone after this.
All right.
No, stand by to cover me, Madam SG.
So Newaya, we pay for all of the freight to and from carriers. So carriers aren't responsible for any of the freight of the devices back to the United States. There may be a small cost associated with storing the devices, but our system is set up such that from each individual retail location, folks can ship back to the United States. So most of the time, it's just a 12-inch by 12-inch box that people are putting trade-in devices in throughout the month, and then they'll ship every couple weeks to every month, and we cover that. Aside from in any of that logistics cost, we don't charge for our platform. So the way we make money is in the margin between how the price we pay for our devices, and then the price we sell them for. So when we give you a price of $100, we do expect to make a little more than $100 on that device. And so that's what allows us to give this valuation software away for free. We bake the shipping costs into all that. Along with, actually, on the flip side of spending money, the carrier does make a commission on each device that they trade in. So it's standard right now. If you trade in a $100 device, we pay you a 10% commission. So we will pay the carrier $10. And then we have a Newaya managed rewards program for your retail associates. And if they grade the device correctly, we'll then issue them a $5 reward for each device that they trade in. So we're hopefully making the retail folks happy, hopefully making the business happy by giving a little bit of additional revenue, and then making customers happy by allowing them to reclaim some value out of their old device.
Okay. One last
Right.
question, Charles. And do you help the telco with the marketing of this initiative?
Yes. Yeah. So that's part of my job is to help grow the take rate or the size of the trade-in program internally with the telco. And so I mentioned that trade-in promotion guide. That's just one of many resources I have to help marketing departments within telcos to position this trade-in program in a way that works for their specific market and also, of course, works for their business. It seems like a lot of the tier ones in the States are giving away the farm to acquire a new customer. They're giving you $1,000 off a device and $800 to pay off your old one. And not all of our regional carriers in the States can do that. I imagine it's not feasible for all the carriers in the Caribbean. So we try to find a creative way to position a promotion in an attractive way that, of course, makes business sense.
Great. Teresa, is that
I'm
any more?
done. Over to you, Charles.
No, any more in the chat?
No. There's a reason why Jimmy mutes me.
No, and that's fine. But is there any other comments or questions in the chat before I come in? I'm not seeing any. So if I'm missing any, please, team, just raise the hand or bring it to my attention. So excellent. So Adam, let me say this. So from your presentation, you kind of pitched that you could be a source of supply to the telcos. So so besides the trade-ins and are stimulating promotional programs to get sales in partnership with you, which you highlighted, but we could just tap you for pre-owned devices for our own purposes, right?
That's exactly right.
And again, which is good. So again, no, the question to you, and I'm going to say to you that, so where the opportunity may well be, as you touched on, is migration of technologies from 2G to 3G, from 3G to 4G, because in every migration exercise, there's always a cohort of customers which either just can't afford to move, can't afford the device, and need a subsidy. So given where the Caribbean is in its network evolution, technology evolution, there seems to be an opportunity there. Only recently, Jamaica turned off its 2G network, and there were challenges there, and there are other markets doing the same and then we'll get from 3G to 4G. You know what I mean? So again, I'm opening out to the audience. Any thoughts on this? Any questions? But this is where we would tell you perhaps you could also focus Newaya strategically in partnering and finding out where our company is in the switchover process, and if you could be of help to them with these quality sort of pre-owned Apple devices. Yeah. But again, share your thoughts on that. Let me see. I think there's a comment in the chat. But what are your thoughts on that? Would you be able to supply, or you don't think you'd have the kind of volumes naturally to do that, to support that?
Yeah, I think that's something I'd probably have to take back to my operations team to see which devices are going to work on those networks and what our supply of them looks like. I think as we try to supply, especially low dollar devices or older devices, it becomes harder to find anything of volume in a quality that is worthy of us reselling to people. So, but I do think it's we're in a unique position in the States, maybe being a generation or two ahead in network operations. And so because we collect our devices from the States, and we do have people that are still shutting down 3G and 4G networks domestically, that we may have an influx of those devices to help supply the Caribbean as folks do network changeovers there as well. So something that I can't speak hyper specifically to, but I do think we are maybe uniquely positioned to help in network transition times.
Yeah, that would certainly be an opportunity. Obviously, if you shopped around the US and there was any entity with a lot of what you call them NIB, new in the box devices, that would be swell. Any other questions in the chat? Let me can you highlight the minimum working requirements for the CPO device not under warranty, or trade-ins only under warranty? Have you addressed this before? If not, please speak.
Yeah. Jimmy, I'll take a stab. But I may need some additional info on that. I think so. Minimum working requirements for our CPO program. Right now, our operations team takes every single device that gets traded in through us through a 69-point inspection against. We have 69 unique damage conditions that we can grade a device for. So anything that we say is CPO, or that we certified as pre-owned and worthy to be sold back to another customer, is one that has no damage conditions present. So the device is fully functional against that fleet of 69 damage conditions. And then from a cosmetics standpoint, right now we don't sell anything as CPO that has any damage to the front glass, meaning there can't be any scrapes or nicks or anything in it. And then it kind of depends on the customer's preferences as to how we release devices for any additional scrapes or nicks on the housings or backs, stuff like that. But fully functional always. And then the cosmetics we can kind of play with depending on the needs of the customer that's buying those devices.
No,
there you go.
Very
no
very
crack
good.
screens. Of course, no crack screens.
No, very good. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, no crack screens. All right, no, good. There is a dynamic within the Caribbean. I think, again, I'm inviting persons on to correct, refine, sort of clarify. There is a dynamic in the Caribbean where, if I may say, carriers encourage their consumers to bring their own phones in store, right? So we don't take the full all responsibility to source them. We do, but carriers will go buy the iPhones in the States, get the warranty there, bring them back home, use them, and either, if there's a problem, rely on that warranty when they go back to visit their family or friends or on a business trip to have it repaired, or swapped out. So that Apple does swap out their own devices. They do their own trading. You go in and you get a knockoff. How does that compete with your service, or there's still a niche for you? Comment on that, because again, iPhone seem to have the highest value on them, and that's where maybe really the magic really happens. Right, but I'm not sure. I've done no study to see what volume of that is from the Caribbean. But Miami is like an extension of the Caribbean, and we do travel back and forth a lot. We could get the phone as a gift, or we buy it and we just take it back, get it repaired, trade it with Apple. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think realistically, of course, a manufacturer is going to be able to buy back the device for the highest price, because the manufacturer is going to bring it in-house and they'll do the repair and then they'll sell it as certified pre-owned, or they'll use it as a replacement phone down the line. But I do think there's still a need or a spot for us in the market, because when we partner with a carrier, we can leverage the carrier's promotion to help maybe provide something more valuable than what Apple's providing, where we say, hey, come bring that iPhone or that Samsung Galaxy into our store, and we as your carrier are going to take care of you. Whereas I don't know if folks have a specific allegiance to Apple, but I do think they could have a specific allegiance to even the retail associate that helps them at the store. And so by arming your retail salespeople with this sales tool, the ability to trade in a device, hopefully it builds a stronger connection with your customers and a little bit stickier relationship.
That sounds good, well reasoned, and I agree. My closing comment would be this, right? I love the point you made about the value of the trading and that promotional aspect that will bump the sales for the carrier. Because, at the end of the day, if partnering with Newaya gets more people into my store, there's value there. So I'm bundling other services, I'm making other promotions, but in addition to that, I'm saying, by the way, if you take this bundle, you can get a pre-owned device, or you can get an Apple starting device, at this price. You can come swap out your device, at this price. It almost seems like a win-win, like a no-brainer. So my encouragement to you would be, some of this probably is less about volumes and more about value. And value can be measured in a number of ways. And if partnering with you get more eyeballs into my products and my services, because people just come check it out, they may not like the pre-owned phone or the device, and they say, no, they'll buy a new one. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. You've helped me bring them in, even when they weren't prepared to come in. So we are encouraging you. So in a kind of wrap-up kind of way, here's when you make your appeal to us, appeal to the CANTO community. How does CANTO help? Obviously, we play a role in opening doors for our partners and associates and members. So great, but it's new. You have a kind of hill to climb. Tell us, how can we help?
Yeah. Well, I agree. I want to touch on that point you made, Charles, about using trade-in or using CPO to tell a new story to your customers. I mean, there's only so much you can say, and the story typically is like, well, we'll give you a little bit off when you buy a device. But now using trade-in, you get to tell a whole new story. Like, come in, see what your trade-in's worth, and if it's worth this, we'll double it, or we'll give you an additional X% off, or you're kind of flipping the script and telling a whole new story from a promotional standpoint. So then getting off of that topic, transitioning, it feels like right now, the thing that comes up a lot when I've spoken with Caribbean carriers is the difficulty or the perceived difficulty of managing the international logistics. And I trust that the folks I've spoken with at carriers have a heck of a lot more experience managing imports and exports from their business. but I think that that's something that kind of still seems to be a little gray for me, if I'm speaking honestly, that because we're not doing anything logistically in the Caribbean right now, that the first one we do will probably take a little bit. There'll be maybe an uphill challenge to figure out how all the nuances. And I understand each country has slightly nuanced ways of managing imports and exports, and so I think that is maybe something that CANTO could help with maybe more initially.
Okay, sounds good. Clarify the ask. So you would like more information on what the rules and duties around importing and exporting used or pre-owned phones? Just clarify it and
Yeah, I think immediately, I spoke with a Caribbean carrier yesterday, and that is what we came back to a lot, is that there's some unknowns about the logistics and duties associated with import and export of used devices. I did some research and I clarified it a little bit for myself, but I do think that could be something that CANTO helps clarify, as they've got access to a lot of people who are buying devices from manufacturers, and so have dealt with it in the past.
No, thank you for that. And at this point, I just asked Madam Secretary General. Seems like a clear enough ask. Is anything else you'd like to ask on top of that? Or is that a good enough takeaway for us?
It is. It most definitely is.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Fantastic. All right. I think Adam, we've grilled you enough. I think you've done fantastic. We are confident that Newaya has value to offer to the Caribbean community and the telecommunications space for sure. It's about cracking the nut. It's about timing, and it's about collaboration. And the more you talk with carriers and players, you'll be able to use that flexibility that you have to tailor your offerings to see how it fits, but also to introduce new ideas as well. New ideas that maybe were not
one second
contemplated. So thank you very, very much. Super enjoyed the conversation. And now let me just make some closing announcements. First, mark your calendars. The final CANTO conversations of the season will take place on Tuesday, June 10th at 10 a.m. AST time. We see the flyer put up on screen. It will feature a powerful 90-minute panel discussion hosted by CANTO's newly launched HR Working Committee, exploring addressing the Caribbean's greatest HR and training challenges. Joining the panel are top executives from across the region. John Gomez, CEO of Alive and CANTO board member. Curly Prescott, CEO of TAT, that's the regulator in Trinidad. Dominic Boone, Vice President of Talent and OD at Liberty Latin America. And Saban James Alexander, CEO of One Communications. We have a lot of expectations for a dynamic session packed with insight and practical strategies. Please support it. You don't want to miss it. And last but not least, you don't want to forget CANTO's 40th annual conference and trade exhibition, as advertised right behind me. It's coming up in July 13th through 16th, 2025. Adam will be sure to see you there. And it's at the Grand Hyatt Bahamar in Nassau, Bahamas. So join us, join regional leaders, innovators, change makers for 4 days of high-level networking, dialogue, discovery, and just bonding with friendships made from last year's conference and before. Stay tuned to our social media for registration details. we really, really are asking for your support, and that we also share it with others within our companies, in our associations, and otherwise. So this wraps up today's Canto conversation. A heartfelt thanks again to you, Adam, for sharing your insights, and also to all who joined and supported the program. We look forward to seeing you at our final session of the season. It's on June 10th, and of course at Canto 2025 in the Bahamas. Until then, please stay safe, stay innovative, and stay connected, and continue to support Canto. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.